Here we go. So good morning and welcome to another day at the Journey Beyond Yourself Summit. Today we have Alan Seale. Alan Seale has been around in this world of transformation and personal development for a long time. I hope that's okay to say, Alan. He is a transformation catalyst, a leadership coach, author of 7 books, a speaker, and the director of the Center for Transformational Presence. I know that you have helped many people over the years, Alan, and I think your transformational presence leadership and coaching programs have near 1,000 graduates from 33 countries. I know that you have traveled the world speaking before the lovely COVID hit. And your latest book, I know also that you have a super interesting background where you were a singer and were you an opera singer too?
Yes, and a voice teacher for opera singers, yes.
Yeah, an opera singer and a voice teacher, and that's kind of where you develop naturally your gift for coaching other singers, and then that's led you to the world of coaching and personal development, and then that's kind of transformed, morphed into leadership. So I'm hoping to unpack some of that with you today, but you're just this package of wisdom for us. And your latest book, Transformational Presence, I just think anybody living today would be drawn by that book. So could we start by you telling me what is transformational presence and what was your intention behind writing the latest book? How did that kind of emerge?
Great. So first, thanks for this chance to speak with you, Sally, and to be here with you today. My late afternoon, you're already a day ahead of me because I'm near Boston in the US. And so first, if we talk about transformational presence, just that term, what does that mean? And then if we actually take that apart to those 2 words, the word presence, which refers to how are you showing up and what do people experience when they are in your presence. So it's not just, there's a lot of talk kind of about be here now, or the power of your presence, and Eckhart Tolle talking about being fully present in the moment. Yet for me, that's only part of the equation. It's not just being fully present in the moment. It is also being aware of the presence that you bring to this present moment. How are you actually showing up in this moment? So there's presence, and what do other people feel when they are around you? And probably if you reflect back over the people who have meant the most to you in your life, it's not so much the things that they do that you remember or that they did, but rather it's how you felt when you were with them.
Yes.
And that's this whole thing of presence is such an enormous thing in our world today. Then that other word, transformation and transformational. Transformation is a word that's being used, way overused all over the place now. And when that happens, it's really easy to lose a sense of what does that word mean? What is the power behind that word? And actually the same thing to some degree has happened with presence as well. So transformation, it comes from a Latin root that means literally change across form, transformare, which means change across form. It means change from the inside out. So that when you drop a pebble in the water and then the rings go out from the center, in a sense, that's what we're working with transformation, that it means we're cutting through to the core, to the essence of what's there, and then working from the inside out, as opposed to working from the outside in. In quantum physics terms, it's that quantum shift, of that shift in vibrational frequency and pattern that you might say is what is transformation, because it's a shift at the core of your being, in your belief and your perception and your understanding about something. That's how it works for an individual, and it's the same for a society or an organization or a company, that something shifts in the core of its being, and then that begins to ripple out through the whole system, or through the whole family, or through the whole individual, and how they're showing up in the world. So then transformational presence, when we put that together, It's about creating the optimal conditions or the best possible culture in which transformation can unfold, or in which the greatest potential can unfold. I think of it sort of like tending a garden. I don't know if you're a gardener, but for anyone who's a gardener knows that you can plant the seed, but there's nothing you can do to make that seed grow. However, there are lots of things you can do to encourage that seed to grow. So you make sure you plant it in rich soil, and you make sure it has the right amount of water and that it gets the right amount of sunlight, and maybe you fertilize it, and you pull the weeds to give it space to breathe. In other words, you tend to the garden. Transformational presence is a lot about tending the garden within the realm in which you're working, creating the best possible conditions.
I love that analogy. I love that analogy. We have to nurture, don't we, all the conditions that we're growing within. We have to nurture.
Absolutely. It's not about making something happen. That's actually manipulation. Um, but rather it's about creating these best possible conditions. And when we are listening to life, or listening to the project that we're working on, or listening to a potential that's waiting to emerge, and letting it guide us and letting it show us what are the best possible conditions that it needs. And then our job is to create that. That's the transformational presence part. We're creating the best possible environment.
Yes. And with that, I've heard you talk about how, and you said we're not trying to change it. When you talk a lot about we're not trying to push against things, we're trying to work with them. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, it's one of the first principles of transformational presence. We call it push against or partner with. And we've all been taught to push against something that we name a problem. And when we name it a problem, already it's become the enemy. It's become the thing that we want to get rid of. We want to whatever. And so one of the big things that we say in transformational presence is a problem is not something to be solved. It's a message to be listened to. It's trying to show us something. It's trying to show us something that wants to change, something that wants to shift. It's trying to show us a new pathway. And so in that moment when you might push against what's happening, what if you step back and you listen and sense and feel there's actually something that's trying to get your attention right now. It has a message for you. It's trying to tell you something. Pay attention to that. And what if you were to partner with that and begin to move forward? It's a totally different kind of dance.
Yes. And I just can't help thinking, this has been covered such a lot, but we have to mention it because I can't help thinking how pertinent your work is with what's happening in the world this past year or so. And you were ahead of your time, Alan, because this is what's happening in the world now, and how we deal with what's happening, to me, is the essential thing. And I kind of enjoy the opportunity that I think we're all being brought, which is if we hadn't worked on ourselves and how we show up and how we deal with change and having the rug pulled from under us, if we hadn't figured that out before, here's another opportunity. Here's a great opportunity, because we're all now in the change, and it's all about, we have to figure out how to work with it, because we can't push against it, because it's not within our control.
There's such a key word though that you're using, and that's figure it out. And that already creates a challenge. Because as soon as we move to the figure it out place, we're trying to analyze it and make a plan, put all the pieces in place, and then make that happen. Instead, the whole piece here, if we just take a moment for a tiny exercise, if we talk about, do you talk to life, or do you let life talk to you? And so bring to your awareness a situation right now that's going on in your life, something that's maybe a bit of a challenge for you. And just notice, are you talking to it? Are you telling it what you want to happen? Are you telling it how you want life to be? Or are you stepping back and listening to it and asking it, what does it want you to know? What is it trying to show you? What's important to pay attention to here? Be gentle with yourself. If you're pushing against it, it's all right. Just listen for a moment. And what's different already when you step back, stop pushing against, and let it talk to you? What happens for you right then?
Yes, that's so powerful. What happens to me is a whole world of possibility opens up because
Exactly.
I'm not constricted. I'm open. I'm open to possibilities. As Einstein said, I'm not trying to create the solution within the mire of the problem, within the same consciousness. I've risen above, I'm not fighting against, and now I see new possibility.
Yes.
It feels very different in my body.
Yes. You know, in the coaching realm, there's a saying that the client has all the answers. For a long time, I bought into that. I believed it. And now then I realized not so long ago, that's actually not necessarily true. The principle of polarity, ancient Hermetic principle of polarity, tells us that nothing can exist unless its opposite is also somewhere present. So the question can't exist unless the answer is here, or the challenge can't exist unless the resolution is not somewhere around us. But the key is that that answer or that resolution or that path forward is in the energy field of the situation. It's not necessarily in here. The person, you may not have the answer inside of you, but what you do have is the human energy technology to tap into that field
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
information and gather, pull that in, the information that's there. And so when we're busy trying to figure it out, we're trying to operate only from what we know already. When we step back and let it begin talking to us, let it begin to show us things, let it show us what's important to pay attention to right now, all of a sudden we've gone to a heart intelligence. We've just stretched way out into the energy field of the situation, and now we can pay attention to what's out there. You know, the Institute of Heart Math, which you may know about in their research, and heart math, they talk about the electromagnetic field of the heart energy center, the heart intelligence, which is the seat of the intuitive mind, is 5,000 times bigger than the electromagnetic field of the intellect. Now, what that says to me is that the heart intelligence has access to a field of information that is 5,000 times bigger than what we can do only from here, from the intellect. And so this is so important to catch ourselves when we get caught in the figure it out place, because literally we just pulled in to here and we don't have access to all that information that's out there.
Yeah.
Instead, when we take a breath and drop down into the heart and into the belly and start to listen and sense and feel to what's going on around us, there is so much information available to us to move forward with, to partner with.
Yes, I love that explanation. Yes. And of course, a big problem in the world is that when we are in stress, we are more contracted and more within our bodies and our heads and not as open. And so, do you teach a technique whereby you encourage people to kind of, come into a state where they can receive, where they can connect, where they can pick up information and relax down their brainwave states and get into a condition ready to access that information?
So, here's the kind of funny thing. We all know how to do that because it's our own system. It's how our system works. It's just that we've kind of shut that system down. And so every single tool that we use in transformational presence that I've created through this work is all about opening out. But it's not about, we don't sit and talk about, now we're going to open your heart and now we're going to expand your awareness, because isn't that a lovely idea? And I can be in my head and think about that. Nope,
Yeah.
we just go right into a process like we just did with a listening to life, or are you talking to life? Push against or partner with. Everything we do is going straight into experience, but into experience in the body. It's like asking a question in a way that your rational mind, your intellect doesn't quite know what to do with that question. That question is not so far out there that the intellect is freaked out, but it's sort of like, I don't quite know how to answer that, which makes us expand beyond the intellect into our much bigger intuitive mind. It's not about leaving the head. People say that all the time, get out of your head. It's not about getting out of your head. It's about expanding beyond it. We need the
Yeah.
intellect. It has a very specific skill to offer us. And it has a skill that the heart does not. But the heart also has a much bigger skill that the head does not. And
Yes.
so how we work with these in partnership, our work in transformational presence is all about lots of tools and lots of ways of working that are so simple and yet immediately take you to another level of awareness.
Yes. And you have a beautiful explanation for how the head and the heart and the body again work together, and we need to partner with them instead of pushing against one and not the other. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, so it's the three intelligences, and there are lots of approaches that are now talking about these three intelligences because neuroscience is showing us the science behind it. The ancient wisdom teachings talked about these three intelligences, but so in our work, we kind of go back to those ancient wisdom teachings. And I think what kind of makes the way we work with these intelligences maybe a little different than how a lot of people do is that it's not about just listening to each of them, it's about getting them talking to each other. When your belly is really scared or your head has a big story about all the reasons why you should not take this step, and yet your heart is saying, come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. If you're trying to convince your head you should do it, it's not going to work. But when your heart and your head and your belly start to have this dialogue with each other, and the head asks your heart for something and the heart can give something back, but then the head has another question, and then and whatever, it's a dialogue that's going on. They begin to work it out. Again, there's no making it happen. There's no manipulation. It's letting the energy do the work as we keep letting them talk to each other. So our job is to kind of facilitate that conversation, and let them find their alignment, because we
Yes.
can't move forward in a sustainable way with anything if these three intelligences are not in alignment with each other.
Yes, we're a whole system. We're not just one, we're a whole system. In
Exactly.
our we talk about allowing the energy to flow as well, so facilitating and just allowing the natural flow to take place without ourselves blocking it somewhere for some
Yes,
reason.
it's important to acknowledge that when you say just allowing it to happen, and there is an allowance to happen, yet it's a very proactive and conscious choice. It's
Mm,
not just, I'll just get out of the way and let it happen.
yeah.
No, you're fully engaged because you're listening, sensing, feeling all the time for what is it asking you for next? And then your job is to respond. It's like coming into a distinction between how the Eastern traditions and the Western traditions look at surrender. In the West, we think of surrender as giving up. I just give up. Whatever
Mm,
happens, happens, and I'll deal with it. In the East, in the Eastern traditions, they understand much more that surrender is a giving over to something bigger than you, a
yes.
greater intelligence, to a greater potential, a greater will, a greater good in service of something bigger than me. And so when you are giving over in that kind of way, this comes back to the push against or partner with. It's not push against or just flow with it, let anything happen. It's push against or and partner with it. It's talking to you. It's asking you for something. And how do you partner with it? Now let's come back to COVID, because you talked about that just a moment ago, about this time that we've been in now for the last year. And here we are, when we talk about, you just said something so important, that it's a whole system. Well, the world is a whole system. For the
Yes.
first time, maybe ever in history, at least that we can connect to in our civilization, the entire world has exactly the same challenge. And
Yes.
within 3 weeks' time, a year ago, the entire world shut down.
Yeah.
COVID is an enormous gift if we would just pay attention.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're not. We're not looking at it as a whole system and realizing that we have to work together. We have to come together as a whole system to be with this. So now we're busy fighting with each other over who has the vaccine and who doesn't. And the rich countries get it and the poor countries don't. And all these kinds of things, not realizing that. So we'll have to have another COVID. We'll have to have another crisis at some point because we're not getting the message here.
Yeah.
There are messages that we're getting. I don't mean to be so negative about this, because there are amazing things that are happening because of this pandemic. But there's a real key piece that unfortunately we still aren't paying attention to as a global leadership, in the
Yeah.
global leadership realm.
Yes. If we didn't realize we were interconnected before, here we are.
Except you see, we're just pushing against that, to say we don't want to look at the internet connected part. We're just, let's fix it for our country, or let's fix it for our continent, or whatever that is, as opposed to no, we're all in this together.
Yeah. 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 You mentioned leadership there, so let's go there.
Mm.
Where was the point that you realized, because I'm imagining that you kind of realize that this we can transform people by people, but also there's big organizations out there too that could use some assistance and wisdom from yourself. So what was the transition where you decided to go into leadership, and then what are the the main differences in your work with the leadership and the personal development?
So there aren't any differences between leadership and personal development, because leadership is personal development. Um, so at the fundamental level, there's not a difference. Of course, yeah, how it looks on the outside is different, but at the core, it's the same. The point
Yes.
was, after I had written the first 3 books, which was Intuitive Living, and then Soul Mission, Life Vision, and the Manifestation Wheel, those are all much more personal development books. And in the early part of my coaching career, that's where I was focusing on personal development and spiritual development. And then I realized, after I'd written those 3 books and I was starting to work on the 4th book, which was Create a World That Works, that book started showing up in my awareness. It tried to be 2 other books first before it finally kind of found its way into Create a World That Works. But I think part of that challenge that was going on inside of me was the realization that at a certain point you need to stop writing about personal development, because what are we going to do with this personal development? What is the difference you're going to make out there in the world because of that? So we've got to take that next step. And I remember when I sent the manuscript of Create a World That Works to my publisher, and I had a very good relationship with my publisher, and I thought, this is not their kind of book. And so I want to honor them and respect that relationship. I'll give them the chance to turn the book down. And so I sent the manuscript off, and within 2 days, the publisher called me up and she said, I love this book. Can I take the 4 levels of engagement and put them on my wall? And I want to publish this book. And then she said, we just have to tweak it a little bit so it's a personal development book. And I said, no. I said, we have already done together 3 really good personal development books. What are you going to do with that personal development? Are you going to make a difference in the world? And so she said, okay, let's go. And so they left the book alone. I mean, they hardly made any edits at all, and took the book. And so that was the shift over. At that point, for me, it was still, well, out of that book, the Transformational Presence Leadership and Coaching program began, because that's the textbook for that course.
Yes.
Yet even then, I had no idea where it was going to go in terms of a bigger sense of leadership. I also, 20 years ago, had no idea I was going to work all over the world and do this. I thought, I'm just going to help people, do their lives. And I kept just saying yes to what I was being asked for. And so invitations started coming and things started happening. And then all this kind of exploded in Europe. When I started the Leadership and Coach Training Program, it was a 28-week teleclass. And that was in the days before the picture. We were just on the phone. And I thought, I have this idea. I think maybe some people would like it. And so for 2 years, I taught it as a teleclass. And then somebody in the Netherlands said, yeah, but don't you want to do this in person? Let's do it here as a 5-day program. And that was the beginning of that. And all of a sudden, a few years later now, they're, graduates from 35 to 40 countries actually now. And I sort of like, how did this happen? Because I didn't try to make any of that happen. It's again, paying attention to what you're being asked for next and just
Yes.
saying yes. And this leadership piece just kept emerging and emerging. And back to your question about what makes it different than personal development. And when I say it's not so different, because it's about listening. It's about
Yes.
listening and sensing and feeling. What are you being asked for? And it's the same in a company. It's the same with a team as it is then with an individual or with a family. When I began, I have not done a lot of corporate work myself yet. Who I have worked with is IKEA. And I've now worked with the country CEOs and their leadership teams from almost every country in the world for IKEA. So I've been with them in groups, and the beautiful thing, we would be together for 2 days. And the beautiful thing about that was how in the first half an hour, they would just start to say, oh my gosh, if I just stop and take a
Yes.
step back and
Yes.
listen, so many answers start coming. And there we went. Then we spent 2 days helping them, giving them all kinds of tools and ways to step back, pay attention. It's trying to show you something.
Yes. And I love that story so much because it's you embodying and demonstrating what you teach, partnering with instead of pushing against, and here you are. So I really story. I really love that story. I wonder if you mentioned it briefly and it's so powerful. I wonder if you would share with us the 4 levels of engagement.
Mm-hmm. That was really the first, maybe that was the coaching tool that started all of this. I was, sometime in the early 2000s, I was teaching for the International Coach Academy, just leading one course on spiritual coaching and that community of practice. And I kept listening to these kind of beginner coaches coach, and I got so tired of hearing them coach the drama, coach the story, instead of cutting through to what's really important. Where are we actually going to make a difference? And I thought, how can I help them to cut through? And then I heard these 4 words. I mean, just listen, it will be given to you. And the 4 words: drama, situation, choice, and opportunity. And I realized, okay, so here's 4 levels through which we engage with the world. We engage in lots of ways, but 4 kind of general levels. So on the drama level, on the surface, it's, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening to me. And whose fault is this? And he said this, and she said that, and he threw this, and this, and it's just, we're putting out fires constantly. And I just can't believe this is happening. And what am I going to do now? You got it. It's that frantic kind of energy of the drama, where the story just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, or is in going in circles and in a quick spiral down.
Yeah.
So there's the drama. And the question that we're asking at the drama level is, whose fault is this? It's not my fault. This has happened to me. I'm the victim now, and I just have to deal with it. What am I going to do?
Yes.
If we drop down to the next level, we come to the situation level. It's a little quieter here. Here, it's just the facts. This is what's happening. And the question is, how do we fix it? And it's usually, how do we fix it as quickly as possible so that nobody else knows that this happened? Let's just take care of it. Well, our society lives primarily at those first 2 levels, drama and situation. And the media certainly keeps us there. It's not really a criticism of the media, it's how they make money. They keep our attention by keeping us in drama and situation. But we don't take any steps forward. We're not learning anything at those 2 levels. We're just patching something up and trying to figure out how to move on. If we come down, though, from situation to choice, it's like we walk across a threshold. We enter a new space. And when we come into choice, it's not what are my choices of how to fix it, but rather, who do I choose to be here? There is this situation. What do I choose as my relationship to it? How do I choose to show up with what's happening here? And the realization that I may not be able to change what's happening, but I can choose what my relationship to it will be. At that point, when you step across into choice, you've just taken personal responsibility for yourself.
Yes.
And you might even be able to say, you know what? I played a role in this. No guilt or blame. This was my role. And this is what I choose going forward. This is who I choose to be going forward. When you come into that choice and you find that place of who do I choose to be, it's so easy then to drop on down to the fourth level, which is opportunity. And there are lots of ways to, lots of questions to be with an opportunity. It might be what wants to happen. That's kind of the generic version. What wants to happen, which is not what do I want, or what do you want, or what do we want, but there's something trying to get our attention here. So the question might be, what's trying to get our attention, or what's the message, or what's the gift that's trying to come through, or what is the breakthrough that we're just right on the edge of, but we're not doing it? What's the shift that's trying to happen? There's something that's trying to get our attention. And I can promise you that the bigger the drama, the bigger the opportunity. Because there wouldn't be all that energy in the drama if it wasn't desperately trying to get your attention for something that wants to shift. Well, when you get really clear what is that opportunity, then we come back to choice. Oh, so now who do I choose to be? It might be the same, but something might have shifted because of what I discovered here and the opportunity. And from there, we don't go back to the situation, but we look back to the situation and say, so now what is my next step?
Yes.
Because of what I know and choice and opportunity.
Yes.
It is an incredibly simple and powerful model
Yeah.
that is being used all over the world. It's the favorite tool of all of our coaches because it's so clear. Everybody understands drama, situation, choice, opportunity. There's no magic words. There's no woo-woo here. It's just bam, so clear and so simple. And it's really a tool of location, of being clear, where am I right now? And when we work with teams and in organizations, it's the same thing. When we even, I joke with them and say, name one person is the disco master, because we call this the disco model: drama, situation, choice, opportunity. The job of the disco master from time to time is just to say, hello, where are we right now? And
Yes.
is this serving us? It's not about one area is good and another is bad. It's not about that. It's what will serve us right now. Sometimes we need to be in the drama because we need to blow off the steam. But if
Yes.
we stay there, it's not going to serve us.
Yes.
So ultimately, it's about learning to live in choice and opportunity. And as the coach, to listen from choice and opportunity. If you meet your client where they are in drama or situation, you are not going to help them. You're just going to try to fix it with them. Not going to.
Yeah. I love this model, and I love the way you're encouraging to have. I see, we have a fire warden, we have a health and safety. Well, let's have a disco warden, and this model it's so useful for all of us. And sometimes it's easy for us to identify people we know who might like to live, in the top two tiers if we can't identify it within ourselves. But it's so useful for us personally within organizations and also in families. So I really think
Yes.
everybody should have this manifesto on the wall. I mean, what a brilliant thing to teach kids. This is where are we? And what can we do? And for them to see, because it's not about giving people, well, as you always say, the answers, but the models, but it's take this, see how it works for you. And then, I just think it's so powerful.
It's so simple and so straightforward, and it can shift everything so quickly. Because it's shifting people's awareness, they become aware, and we get caught in the drama so easily because it's the air we breathe, and we don't even realize it. So it keeps reminding us. One of our coaches not long ago said, Alan, I just went into this company to work and I walked into the conference room and on the wall was the 4 levels of engagement. And I thought, somebody else from Alan Seale has been here already. But there it is. It is so powerful. So yeah.
It is, and I love that you say it's all about awareness, because we can get trapped habitually in the level of drama and we might not see it. That's why I said sometimes it's useful to get out and see it within other people, and then that helps us to recognize it within ourselves.
The,
So if
the,
we start to have that habit of just coming from the lower levels instead, it's a skill, isn't it, that we need to kind of drill in.
Absolutely. And especially when you get into a company and with a team, they're paid to solve problems. And so they are really in that situation level. And very
Yes.
often they're not getting so stuck in drama, but they're really in fix it mode all the time. And because they're so busy trying to fix it, they they miss out on this incredible information that is available to them in choice and opportunity. And they don't see the bigger picture. It's back to the IKEA thing again of them saying, oh my gosh, if I just take a step back and breathe and listen, there's so much more available to me. Transformational presence is built on 3 questions. And maybe let's talk about those for a moment because it's so connected here.
Right.
Um, and these 3 questions show up in pretty much every tool that we've created and everything we're doing. The first question is, what wants to happen? Again, not what do I want or you want, or it's in a bigger picture for a service, being in service of something bigger than me. There's something that wants to happen here. So the question that you might ask, what is the opportunity right now, or whatever. But that's the first question. And listening, sensing, feel to get that. And then the second question is, who is that asking me to be? Or who is that asking us to be? And it is amazing, though it's a very simple question. They're very common words, and people have no idea what that question means because we're not used to asking that question.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the key is that, again, there's nothing to figure out. Listen to it. There's an opportunity. What wants to happen? It's asking me for something. It's asking me to show up in a certain kind of way. Maybe it's asking me to play a particular role. It's asking me to bring a particular skill forward. It's asking me in some way, it's asking me to show up in a particular way. And as I get clear about how it's asking me to show up or who is it asking me to be, then the third question is, what's it asking me to do? What's it asking me to do? Nothing to figure out.
Yes.
It will show me. And the amazing thing that I see with leaders all over the world, as they get clear of what wants to happen, and then especially when they get clear of who's it asking me to be, the doing is so clear. It's just like, of course, here's my next step.
Yeah.
That third question of what is it asking me to do, we're not talking about the grand plan. We're just talking about the next step. It's
Next
asking
step.
me to take this step now. And after I take that step, I'll get a sense of what the step after that is. One step at a time, we move forward. We're living in a world where everything is changing so rapidly that it doesn't work to make this long-term plan now. We can have a long-term vision, but the plan is going to have to be worked out step by step because the ground keeps shifting.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much. You have given us so many tools, but because I'm asking everybody this question, I would love you to leave us with the question is, what would be one tool? What would be the message, if I could only ask you for one, to leave our audience with? This summit's all about how do we get beyond where we currently stop? And you've given us the answer, really, but what would be your one piece of advice over everything else that people could take and implement now to get to a new level for themselves? And knowing you, the little bit I do, I'm assuming there may be a tool associated. So if you wanted to run us through a little exercise or a tool, I would be very grateful too.
Well, we've done, I mean, what I would say is it's all about talking to life or letting life talk to you, because that really is the core. There's the essence. But let's work a little bit with the push against or partner with, and take that another level. So bring to your awareness something that is a big challenge for you and that you're tending to push against to try to make something happen. So tell me when you got your topic.
Okay.
Great. Now, for just a moment, no matter what your relationship to this topic is right now, for just a moment, push against it. Make something happen. Fix it. Do something. And pay attention to what's happening inside of you. When you push against this, it's the problem. You have to fix it. And notice what's happening inside of you, what's happening with your breath, what's happening with your relationship to whatever your topic is. Just notice how that feels. Push against it. Stay with it just another moment to memorize what this feeling is when you're pushing against. And then take a deep breath and shake that out. Just literally shake your body. Yeah. Yeah. Now, chances are your challenge is still there. You didn't get rid of it in that pushing against. It's okay, take another deep breath. And imagine that you could either drop down underneath it or lift up above it, whichever feels easier for you, getting to a quieter place. And listen, sense, feel. There's something that's trying to get your attention here. There's a message it's trying to give you. There's something that this challenge wants you to know. Hear that, feel that, sense that. And what if you begin to partner with that message? Partner with it, work with it. Walk alongside it. And notice what's different in your breath, your sense of well-being, your relationship to what's going on. Partnering with, listening, it's asking you for something. What if you step forward with that? What if you actively engage and partner with what it wants you to know? And so, Sally, what's different?
Well, again, there's opportunities, and there's so from here there's opportunities, whereas before there weren't, and my body feels completely different. So when I was pushing against, there was a real knot in my stomach, and then when you drew my attention to the breathing, yeah, I was kind of stopping my breathing there too. But in the partnering with, there's the flow because I'm breathing and that knot's removed. Much more.
Yes. So it's really important to emphasize that this is not about giving up and just going with whatever's happening. This is not just go with the flow. No, because the flow might, in fact, not be going in a very good direction. And you know that feeling when you just sort of say, oh, whatever, and I just go with it. Yet deep inside of you, oh, it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
You know this is not right.
Yeah.
So it is partnering with that wisdom that's trying to come through, that message that's trying to get your attention. What if I start to work with that? And something inside is able to stand up straighter, to take a deeper breath, and begin to work with that. And now you're headed on a different pathway.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. Alan, I could talk to you so much more, but I'm very conscious of your time and I want to respect that. So thank you so much for being with us here. We will, of course, pop all your details under this video where people can find you. It's been wonderful talking with you and you've given us so much. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
I wish you all the very best, and I look forward to when you can travel again in the very near future.
Thank you. I think we all look forward to that. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All the best. Take care, Alan.